PXG put out a video explaining why their putters weren't like Lab Golf, and then Lab Golf put out a video explaining that they're not like PXG, but they're better, and the revealer that PXG used works differently than the Lab, and back and forth. It's going to be fun, going to be interesting, and we know there's more to come, and I don't just mean between PXG and Lab.
What is up, everybody? How you living? No putts given. Tony and Chris, GolfSpy C, GolfSpy T. We're back. Subscribe. I know most of you already are subscribed, but if you're not already one of the subscribers, do that so you get like all the notifications and things when a new episode is out, which tends to be weekly.
Tends to be.
Ish. But we haven't been in this direct environment here in a couple of weeks. So
I feel like I've been missing some episodes. We've been doing some other stuff.
Yeah, we tossed in a little thing on Shop Indoor Golf. We tossed in a couple little things here and there, but we're back. We got some equipment stuff. Solheim Cup happened. Pat and Kizzire happened in Napa Valley, but we got Putter Wars.
Okay.
I'm calling it Putter Wars. I don't know if there's a better term for it, but we got to talk Putter Wars, Tony, because this is, I mean, the rest of what happens in Western civilization may hinge on how this all turns out. So,
yeah, it's heating up, man. It is heating up. The battle of
ready?
the unconventional putters. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Are you ready for that? We got a stock ticker survey and some equipment we'd like to see companies come out with during what we're kind of terming silly equipment season. So we'll get to all that kind of stuff. But Solheim Cup, congratulations to the U.S. team. Made it much more interesting.
USA. Yeah.
Right. Made it much more interesting on Sunday with singles than I thought it was going to be. They were up quite a bit, but man, it was coming kind of down to it. And if you're a European fan, how do you not just absolutely love Charlie Hall? She was unbelievable. Korda ran into a buzzsaw. That kind of set the tone. And man, I mean, she was making everything. Putting with the flagstick in, mind you.
Isn't this how it always goes? And whether it's Solheim Cup, President's Cup, Ryder Cup, all of your various cups, somebody gets hot and puts on an absolute show and sort of becomes the darling of the tournament.
Yeah.
So I guess
I mean, you're looking
did that, but
well, and I mean, Korda had been
the darling of everything else.
Yeah, she was the buds. I mean, she had a phenomenal Solheim Cup, but man, Charlie Hall, and then the way Lexi was putting on Sunday too, I was like, Lexi, you sure you want to retire? Are you sure this is? I mean, because again, who knows? Who knows? Anyway,
I got to tell you, I am so torn on the Solheim Cup and the Ryder Cup because, hands down, the Solheim Cup is not just one of the best tournaments in golf or women's golf. It is one of the best tournaments in all of golf, bar none. But then you start looking at a few things, and you're like, hey, wait a minute. If I told you that we were going to have a major championship and 6 of the top 10 players wouldn't be eligible for that major championship, you'd be like, this doesn't seem legit. If I told you that 13 of the top 20 wouldn't be in that tournament, you would be like, this is not ideal. This is not legitimate. This is not the best in the world competing.
Right.
And with that in mind, I think it's time, like, this format needs to be adapted.
What would you do? Because again, what you're talking about is where, when you have the U.S., whether it's mainland Europe or, used to be Great Britain, Ireland, whatever, basically we're eliminating
the
Asia,
rest of
New Zealand,
the freaking
Australia.
World.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
you're eliminating the rest of the world.
Canada. Suck it, Canada. But
suck it, Canada. But
I don't have that answer. Maybe you kind of have a draft. Maybe you introduce a third and fourth team into it and do it that way. Some type of round robin play. But at some point, you have to adapt the tournament to address the reality is that golf is more so than ever, more so than it's ever been, is now a global game.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you're going to say, hey, this is, again, not just one of the best tournaments in women's golf, this is one of the preeminent events in all of golf. And we're not going to have any of the Asian players. Lydia Ko is from,
I know,
a New Zealander is not going to play. I
Right.
look at this and I'm like, and as a guy who has traditionally loved the Solheim Cup, and if you've listened to the show at all, you know I do not tend to watch a lot of tournament golf. It's not my thing, but I love the Solheim Cup. And this year I found myself kind of going, I feel like, you know, it's just missing pieces now, and it needs to adapt. And I get, this is the way it's always been done, right? It's always been USA versus Europe, but the absolute worst reason to continue doing anything a certain way is because that's the way it's always been, and that's where we're at, and it needs to change. And well, that's the end of my rant.
I love it. So if you have ideas, post them. How could they change it? I mean, because again, we see with the Ryder Cup and the President's Cup. The President's Cup basically tries to kind of fill
Ryder
that
Cup
void, but it's kind of, you know, it's the off year of the Ryder Cup, and I get it's still a big deal ish.
Is it?
But it's not compared, you know. Is it? So you kind of got that. Pat and Kizzire won the PGA Tour event in Napa Valley this week, and we're not going to go crazy deep on that because we got so many other things to get to. But I noticed this. This is for
what did you notice, Chris?
What I noticed. This is for all you combo set loving people out there like myself. Not one, not two, not three, but 4 different iron models in his set of irons. He's a Titleist guy, so Titleist T200 in his 3 and 4 iron, a T100 in just his 5 iron, 620 CB in just his 6 iron. 7 through 9 MB. So that's 4. Now, technically, you could say 5 because then he goes with an SM10 pitching wedge. So technically, if you want to go all the way through pitching wedge, he has 5 different iron models. What does that? Because I know what it tells me.
Part of like my instant first reaction is that it's overkill and ridiculous, but at the same time, we've seen in testing constantly. Forget about what Titleist says, and about ball speed drops and that point where you can no longer hit your optimal numbers. That's all real, but just more generally, what we've seen in testing is you have a lot of sets where guys will hit a 5 iron really well, a 7 iron not as well. They hit a different 7 iron much better. And you wonder, like, man, could the best set for you be like 14 from like 1 iron from 8 different sets? I'm not ruling it out. That's all I'm saying.
And I get that's the extreme, but what it does tell me is that 2 things. Number one, as much as we want to think of an iron as a set of irons, it's not. You have 14 clubs. Really, each club should do its own job. And just because a club is the same model as the one next to it, that doesn't mean it's the best club for that particular job. We've seen this notably in a couple different. I mean, we don't see a ton as much of that, like, a 7 iron being one thing and an 8 iron being another, or a 5 being one and a 6 being another. But we certainly see it in the pitching wedge slot where people are going, hey, I'm not going with the set match pitching wedge. A specialty wedge, if you will, tends to have a little higher center of gravity. So maybe that's a better fit for some people. But what it tells me is, like, you really should look at, and don't be afraid to mix and match different
definitely
models.
Make the fitting as complicated as possible.
Yes, make your fitter.
If you're paying for the fitting, make them work.
You're making it, but the reality is too. Companies they're creating sets to be constructed that way, right? Where they want people to be able to. Now, most often it's like, hey, we're gonna play this model. We're gonna fit you for a 7 iron, because that's the thing, right? Because they can't fit you for an 8 and a 9 and a wedge. Most places they don't have all of those, so we're gonna fit you for a 7. Assume that that's gonna work up through 9 iron or pitching wedge, and then once your ball speed or spin and launch, whatever, drops 6 iron, 5 iron, whatever, then we'll look for something else potentially. But when I saw Kizzire's bag, I'm like, love it. That guy's the variety platter,
like
man.
it's like,
He's the
like
whole.
he walked down the range during a member guest and just was like,
that guy, when Kizzire goes to when he goes to a Mexican restaurant, he always orders the combo platter. That guy doesn't just get the fajita, whatever. Like, he gets the combo platter, and I appreciate that. Anyway, let's talk some equipment. Let's go back last week real quick.
Yeah.
PXG came out with some new golfing balls.
New golfing.
You have some updates there. You wrote the article on it. Give me the macro view here on golf, because we've been calling spades. We've been telling people, hey, this ball is great. This one's terrible. If it tested and got a 13 out of 100, we're going to say that. If it got 92 out of 100, we're going to say that too. Where does PXG, where do these fit in? Are you excited? Are you intrigued? Do you care?
I wasn't going to care.
That was your default, to not care?
Yeah, well, frankly, it is, right? Because it's not like there isn't already an abundance of quality golf ball choices on the market. And
correct.
If Titleist doesn't have a ball that fits you, by the time you introduce Callaway, TaylorMade, Bridgestone, Srixon, long-standing brands with decent enough, in the worst case scenario, reputations, like you could argue there's not a need for anything else, and I would still make that argument, but there is some real evolution here, going from one ball to two balls, having the X ball, the higher launching, higher spinning,
sure,
call it the Pro V1X competitor, that I think realistically is probably closer to the original ball, then have that lower flying, lower spinning, slightly softer feeling standard PXG Extreme. So you more fitting options. And the other thing here, it's the same dimple pattern as the previous ball.
Okay.
But significant thinning of the cover.
Okay.
And so now you have a ball that when you cut it open, it actually looks like a tour ball.
Okay.
And so I would take that to mean that PXG is doing something to influence the tooling and the processes at the factory they're sourcing these balls from, which is SM Parker, the same factory that Kirkland comes out of. Yep. And it does make me wonder, at some point there will be a new Kirkland ball. Are we going to see that thinner cover trickle down? And to be perfectly clear, right, the PXG and the Kirklands, they're different balls, but they do have some shared technology. So going back to the original, right, that was exactly the same cover on both balls.
Right. We had every reason to believe that there was a lot of Xerox going on there between
like the cores were different, but the rest of the ball was the same. Here we're starting to see differences, bigger cores, faster ball this time around. And that was a ball that wasn't lacking for speed anyway. I would say sort of despite the high spin rates, really held up
decently long, decently fast.
Yeah, my thing here though, they have introductory pricing right now. But I look at it, they're coming in, what I say, like a $50 price point.
a dozen, right?
Yeah, and
that's the swing and a miss to me. That's the part I don't get. I get everything else about this ball. I love the fact that, like you said, it comes out of SM Parker. We've harped on the fact that Kirkland balls have notoriously tested not super great. We have a lot of
hit or miss, mostly miss.
So it's fair if somebody looks and goes, geez, PXG's making the same ball coming out of the same factory as this ball that you guys have kind of said, kind of stay away from. Yeah, but we have reason to believe that, like I said, there's either different processes or some different things in play.
I mean, and we've talked to the guys at PXG. We talked to Brad Schweigert over there in particular, and talked about how there is a higher standard of quality with the ball that you sell now at $50 a dozen than one that you're selling at two for $30 or whatever they are now, the Kirklands. So
right.
I get that piece of it.
Out of the same factory doesn't mean we have the same concerns at all. That being said, I don't love the $50 a dozen. And the reason I don't is because I think for me, if I'm just looking at a consumer and I'm going, okay, hey, I don't want to pay, I'm assuming these are, I don't want to pay the $55 a dozen or whatever for a Pro V1, Pro V1X, top end Callaway, TaylorMade, etc. if I'm willing to spend $50 or more a dozen, I'm probably looking there. Okay, if I'm not, does that $5, $7, $8 a dozen really motivate you to buy? So it makes me wonder, who are they trying to sell these to? And all I can think of then is like, they're not really trying to take share from these other balls either in that middle spot. They're trying to give PXG loyalists something
Yeah.
that they can play and be proud of and say, ooh, I got the PXG bag, clubs, hats, tattoo of Bob Parsons on my neck, da 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 da, and now I can play a PXG ball as well. And it's almost as good as a Pro V1, but it's $7 less.
Yeah, and I mean, from a performance perspective, I've said this countless times, right? Anybody can make a ball that performs similarly to a Pro V1. Can you make that ball over and over and over again so that you have the quality and consistency that Titleist has? That's the challenge. And for me, looking at this, and again, right, new ball, obviously some changes that are going to be worth looking at in Ball Lab,
right?
But you're going to take a hard look at that consistency, and past experience says it's certainly not on the level of a Titleist, probably not on the level of where Callaway is right now. And then even looking at Foremost, right, the factory that makes the Max Fly ball, it makes the Vice balls, makes the Encore balls,
right?
Notable DTC. There we go. Them the letters. Notable DTC brands for $10 less a dozen, a known commodity, excellent golf balls,
right?
For $10 less than what PXG is offering these up. So really, this to me feels like, really preaching to your base, if you will, and you've got to love PXG or like PXG or somehow be at least infatuated or curious about PXG to take this jump. I think if these ever actually reach that $49.99 price point, it's a miss. At $39.99, the introductory pricing, now it's a conversation. Yeah,
I like it there a lot more. So who knows? Srixon, we saw the sneak peek, spotted, if you will, irons coming out. These are, it's the time of the year we're not seeing a ton of new equipment, particularly main line, flagship release kind of stuff. Like I said, we're getting to our wishes and hopes and dreams for silly season equipment in a minute, but it does appear that an updated version of the Z series, the Mark II, 7, 5, etc. irons are coming out. Anything you noticed interesting in those first couple pictures?
I mean, it's just subtle cosmetic things, right? It does appear to be like maybe a little bit of more effort to put some meat behind the sweet spot, if you will, at least visibly. But I mean, it's if you were to strip off all of the markings, you would say that's a Srixon iron. So, and we'll see, what is it? Pure frame, right? It's probably some sort of stability technology that preserves feel.
Yep.
So, we got that going for him, but yeah, I mean, I'm kind of wait and see. It's a Srixon iron. It's going to be solid. They seem to do, there's some magic we've seen. We think
the V-Sol is still there, which I'm glad doesn't appear they got rid of that. My two biggest questions are, as per usual, one, did they still stick with Endo as their forging house? I hope they did. I'm assuming they did. I still wish they'd make a much bigger deal of that. They don't, in my opinion, do a great job.
Nobody cares but you.
I know.
I mean, it's nerd stuff. That is absolute nerd
I know.
stuff.
Mizuno, I think, still does a better job, even though people don't necessarily know who Chuo is or whatever. But the forging story, the nothing feels like a Mizuno, that stuff, like, they do a much better job of investing in and telling that story. I think Srixon should leverage that a lot more. But a question that I have more so on these ones is going to be the shaping. We've seen a trend, and again, I'm just going to use Mizuno as kind of a benchmark example. In the last couple iterations, we've seen them try to go a little bit more compact, heel to toe, and maybe adjust the top line a little bit, meaning using some things to make the top line appear slightly thinner. Some of that was kind of shaving off a portion of kind of the rear, kind of chamfering that rear edge a little bit to make it look a little tighter, cleaner. If I want to have a complaint, and it's not even a complaint, it's just Srixon, you have to like that kind of boxier, squared off top line. That is a look that they are known for, and they have that. I wonder if they're going to keep that same look, or if they're going to try to do anything dimensionally that's going to be different with these. My hunch is they won't, but I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah, and we haven't seen that top line photo yet, so
Yeah, they just tend to be a little more squared, a little, and again, that's more of an aesthetic thing. I get it, than a performance thing for sure, but we shall see. We got to talk putter wars, Tony. Putter wars, putter wars, putter. You may have seen these videos come out this week for people that are out there. Did you see the videos? Did you watch?
yeah, I did. I watched the PXG video last week and thought it was interesting, and then I saw Sam from Lab Golf's video called first thing this morning. I thought that was interesting as well, and I think, well, hey, putter wars are about to get interesting, especially as more and more enter the fight, so to speak. So,
and it's a perfect time for it too, because like I said, we don't have major driver releases coming out. It's not January, February. It's September, October, November. It's a perfect time for putter wars because it's a fun area to pay attention to, and it's new and it's unique and different. So essentially, what is the crux of the debate right now for people, catch people up that don't know anything
so
we're talking about? What are the wars going on?
So lab putters, right? They're in lab, abbreviation for lie angle balance putters, have been around a decade. Within the last couple of years, really started making some noise as use and wins have picked up on tour.
Yep.
And we heard some chatter that there would be some, say copycats for now. Like that's how it was framed. Some lab copycats, and it was kind of expected because I think we reached a tipping point where it was fair to say that whatever lab was doing, whatever you want to call the technology, lie angle balancing, funky looking putters, whatever, they kind of reached this tipping point of validation. We're like, yeah, there is clearly something here. And so you knew it was only a matter of time. And so then PXG came out with its Allen putter very recently. And the expected chatter, like just what you would expect. Oh, they just knocked off lab. This is just a lab ripoff.
Right.
And so PXG put out a video with their chief product officer, Brad Schweiger, wearing dad shoes and talking about how the PXG technology was fundamentally different from lab.
Right.
Torque balance effectively versus lie angle balancing, and showed in a PXG version of the revealer, lab's little swingy thing, how it kind of moved through the stroke, and how the movement was, the little bit of movement was expected, but that it always returns to its starting position, unlike a lab, which always returns to square, versus a lab which always returns to wherever you put it.
Right.
But again, the crux of that being, hey, our technology is different. And then this morning, video from Lab explaining kind of how the PXG revealing tool is different from theirs, and how their technology differs from PXG and what they're trying to achieve. And so, yeah, kind of, I guess that's where we are. I don't know if there's anything I've missed that you would like to throw in there, but dueling videos is such a 2024 kind of thing, isn't it?
It is. And the thing that I appreciate as I was watching some of those too is like, we don't see this as much in the golf industry, and I wish we would see a little bit more of it. You definitely see it like in the auto industry, where you get effectively a one brand or manufacturer calling out another brand, and we tend not to see, and that's why I called it putter wars, because in my head, the last time, when we had ball wars, and the chief architect of that was largely Harry Arnett. This is going back a ways for some people, but what you really have here now is companies that are, in defense of their own product. You can't have it both ways, meaning you can't say, hey, ours is just different, because now we're saying, hey, ours is different, but it's better, or it achieves a certain outcome better than a different product on the market, right? So that to me is what's kind of interesting about this is, okay, like take every putter you've probably ever played up until this date, and most people probably have not played a putter that's torque balanced or toe up or zero torque or lie angle balanced, anything in that category. So if you have not played anything that kind of fits into that category, the question is, do any of these new putters or this new technology or revamped technology, what are they supposed to do? And do any of them do it better than one of the competitors? That's the part where I think we're getting to that's interesting. Lab has their shtick, right? They have their approach, and maybe shtick isn't the right word, that maybe sounds like it's contrived. They have their technology. I've used it. I've seen it. They believe 100%. You talk to Sam anytime, he is 100% passionate that this is the best way, the right way to approach that. He is 100% dialed in on that. I have no doubt if you talk to PXG and you talk to Brad, they would say the same thing. Talk to Garen Reif last week like 4 different times about their even roll zero stuff coming out. And he is just as passionate that they have the best answer in this area now as well. I have no doubt that Odyssey or Cameron and some others will have their best answer as well. So 7 companies can't all have the best answer, though.
Yeah, I thought it was kind of one of the things that I forgot to mention that stood out towards the end of the video Sam put out, is kind of mentioning that, you know, every lab putter is basically, if you buy it from them, there is some kind of fitting involved, and they've developed kind of a video fitting system where they
Sure.
can watch your stroke, determine the right fit for you from that. But everything they do is fit, and they mentioned, like, you know, PXG is more of a mass market model, and so, you know, theirs is designed to work to an extent without the fitting component, where if you bend the lie angle of the putter or change the grip, it doesn't completely just sort of invalidate everything you did previously. So it is, even in that respect, a little bit of a different approach. And maybe, like, it comes down to the fact, like, if you're just going to buy one, you may be better off with the one that's designed to work entirely off the rack. Although, again, PXG is, I shouldn't diminish how important fitting is to that brand, and how much they push fitting. I mentioned, right, there are just a couple of companies that we work with that would prefer you wouldn't so much as waggle a club that isn't properly fit for you. Right. And PXG is one of those brands. But at the same time, I can go on to the PXG website right now and just order. You can do the same thing with Lab, I think, but again, it's like the fitting has always been part of the story, where PXG is as off the rack as any other brand in terms of just going online and buying what you want, no questions asked kind of thing. So again, a little bit different approach. Maybe that fundamentally matters. Maybe it doesn't, because at the end of the day, right, one of these, PXG, Lab, Even Roll, when the others come, as we know they will, one of them is going to be better for you than the others, probably. It just boils down to your, I mean, your interest. Yeah, but it comes down to what is your interest and ability level to discern the actual differences, or just go, this one looks pretty good. So,
well, and I'll be honest, each one of these has a different level of intrigue for me for different reasons. So obviously intrigued with Lab because of what you've seen results. Like for me, the interest with Lab is really around the performance and implications, because you've seen guys, you know, call it the Lucas Glover effect, right? The Adam Scott effect. I mean, Adam Scott's top, you know, you'd have to look up the stats, but in terms of strokes gained putting, he's been a different player the last several years. So I'm interested in Lab because we've seen this performance and these performance implications. Interested in the PXG one because it's their take on it, and we know they have sometimes different budgetary requirements and things. So did they explore or find something different than somebody else? Don't know. I've never
different, better, different, worse, right? That's
I haven't tried it, haven't seen it. I'm intrigued with Cameron and Odyssey just because you have, you know, again, maybe it's kind of that Coke, Pepsi, BMW, Audi kind of thing. Like, hey, flagship brands, tons of success. What's their take on it? You know, like, just to see, how does a big brand like that, what is their take on it? And then my intrigue with Even Roll is twofold. One, the groove story remains. We've seen the impact of the groove, so you get that. And then Garen is notorious for taking existing designs and making them better. something that maybe wasn't 100% well thought out before, and he notices like, hey, if I change just this, I can make it way better. And he did that in the Zero by making the shaft straight. So he's like, basically what he was trying to do is say, hey, how do we get all these benefits but make it look as traditional as possible? So can somebody look at this and go, oh wow, it basically looks like a quote unquote traditional putter, but I get these performance benefits, and how much of that is the shaft sitting straight as opposed to leaning forward or leaning back. So I'm intrigued because that's how that tends to be his design philosophy around this stuff. So I'm intrigued on all of them for a variety of different reasons. But like you said, at some point, one's going to be better for you than another one. It's not going to be a dead heat. So
we shall see.
What do we do? Do we test them all? What should we do?
Well, we are right now. This has been our first opportunity to put our putt view putting green through its paces, I guess. So we are currently testing the PXG and the lab in the studio right now. So those results coming in a couple weeks, I think.
Teaser. Stock ticker survey. We should promote this real quick. We got a survey out there. We'll link into it too. But want to get people's opinion, like just good, better, different. Like as these companies are going.
Yeah, quick background here. Like if you've followed MyGolfSpy at all for the last several years, we've done what we call the 1-word survey, right? We just every brand we give you a word or every word we give you a bunch of words and ask you to choose the brand that you most associate with that word. This time around, we're kind of taking a stock ticker approach, if you will, and asking you, hey, from the beginning of the year, is this equipment brand, this apparel brand, this media outlet, this professional golf tour? So we've got different categories. In your opinion, are they trending up, down, staying the same, or do you have not any kind of opinion whatsoever? So that's the gist of it. And the plan is to repeat it at least twice a year, maybe even quarterly, and just kind of see how brands are trending in our readers' opinion over time. So
yeah, kind of gauging customer sentiment on. That's another way to, just kind of gauge sentiment. Like, hey, are they moving the right direction, moving the wrong direction, or just kind of treading water, so to speak? Who knows?
Yeah. So check that out.
All right. Last topics. It's September, October. Like I said, if there is a place in the year where it's not dead time, it's kind of a shoulder season, but this tends to be the time of the year where companies may release products that don't have mass market appeal, or they're not meant to have mass market appeal. They're not meant to be a flagship. Again, we see those launches at different times of the year. So we started talking about this, saying, hey, this is like when Callaway would launch like the utility wood. Is it a fairway wood? Is it a hybrid? Is it a hybrid?
I mean, I'm almost disappointed. Callaway's kind of backed off of this a little bit, but fall used to be where they do like the really weird stuff. Not necessarily like, I guess you could say it had a game improvement slant. So sometimes you get like the Great Big Bertha, Super Duper, I made that up, irons, but
right.
But you also had like the FT Fusion driver, right? It was kind of like that FTI or FTIZ reimagined slight triangular shape that really, I think, I talk about this as maybe one of the most underappreciated, if not unnoticed, good drivers of all time. Just one of those totally under the radar things. And Callaway used to do a lot of that one-off weird stuff this time.
Yeah,
not so much
I always
anymore.
look forward to it too.
Yeah.
So anyway,
mainstream. Here
are 5 things that Tony and Chris would like to see come out during this time of the year. So companies, if you're listening and you can, turn something around like that, these are our top 5 September, October shoulder season equipment releases. Give me one, Tony. What do we got?
I got what I wanted. Can I start with getting what I wanted without even saying I wanted it?
Yeah. Yeah.
No.
Uh-oh. 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 What do we got here? Oh, yes.
This is all I wanted. You can do the rest of your list yourself, because this is like 85% of what I could ask for right here.
Tell people what it is and why you want it.
This is the Vokey Wedgeworks. Earlier than expected, but still later than I would have liked to see it. V grind wedge, available 58, 60 degrees. So
and for you, this fits the change up, right? This is the
yeah, this
part of
is
the
this is
three in
one
the
of the
trunk concept.
this is one of the ones that goes in the trunk, right? In the article I wrote, like you carry a spare tire in your trunk, right?
Mm-hmm.
Why not a spare wedge? Why not a spare golfing wedge? I ask.
Why not a spare golfing wedge? All
So
right.
this is the simplest explanation is it's a high bounce T grind,
High bounce T grind.
which is why I love it. But if you have a tendency to get a little steep with a T grind,
Uh-huh. Or
you
if it's
want
a
a
little
V grind.
damp, conditions aren't
Yeah, like this
perfect
is
for that.
when I found out this was coming, I said, "Thank you. This is the wedge I want for the fall." So if you're,
Wow.
if you're like me and you look out the window and you notice, hey,
Hey.
starting to get a little color in them our trees, typically means the ground is softening up. It's not drying out like it used to. So
Okay.
T grind can tend to dig a little bit. V grind plays mostly like a T, doesn't sit quite as flat, but yeah, this is my
It
go-to.
shouldn't. Like you said, it's a
Yeah.
slightly higher bounce version.
Yeah, this is my go-to rainy day, but also this is for me the ultimate fall golf lob wedge.
Tony's list. Here's a couple other ones I had. How about this? A designated short driver. Now I know we got the mini driver phenomenon, but
not a mini, a shorty.
driver that isn't available at 45 or 45 and a half. I want a driver that is available only like up to 44 inches long and maybe like 400 cc's.
So bigger. See,
It's a mega mini driver.
All right. Well, I will throw one more on my list, and I hope it comes. But I want to go the other direction.
Oh,
right, we saw it. USGA list several months ago, the Titleist mini driver, which if you actually talk to Titleist, they'll tell you it's a 2-wood. Kind of size-wise, it's just a little bit bigger than the original SLDR mini, so closer to that fairway size, kind of the opposite of where Callaway went with their mini.
Yeah, they went to like 340 cc's.
I want that available for everybody. So yeah,
okay.
But again, that's one of those niche. That's perfect fall product.
Perfect fall product. Here's another one. Mizuno, I want you to bring back the Euro custom option. I know there's like this little Euro thing going on in Europe, but it ends up being like $1,000 a club or something. You got to fit, go to this like fitting seminar or whatever. What about bringing back Euro custom? What if I want that satin finish on some?
I think you're shit out of luck. That's
41s.
That's like me going, what if I want this beautiful 60-degree V grind wedge in a slate blue finish?
In Tony slate blue. Right. Maybe it happens, maybe it doesn't. Here's my last one. I wish a company would experiment with this. A swing speed set. 7-iron, swing it. You get your swing speed, and they say you need 11 clubs. You need 7 clubs. Just do it based on swing speed. Because if you don't swing it fast enough, you're not going to create enough gaps to need 14 clubs. So do a swing speed set of clubs for beginning golfers.
Yeah, that's an interesting idea. I played several years ago. I got paired up with basically it was a family. It was like me and a guy and his mother-in-law and father-in-law. So not awkward at all to be in that situation. But anyway, the mother-in-law, beautiful golf swing.
Yeah.
But I swear there was just watching the ball flight, I would say 3 yards of difference between her 7-iron and her 5-wood.
That's what I'm saying.
And she pured them both. I mean, don't get me wrong. They were beautiful, struck like straight, but
I want Titleist, Mizuno, Callaway, a mainline brand to say, hey, we're going to sell you fewer clubs because we think it'll be better for you starting out. I want to see that. Anyway. Some thoughts. Maybe you people have thoughts out there. There's all sorts of thoughts. We got thoughts on putter wars. You're going to have questions. What other products do you want to see coming out there? All these things. Find us.
What's in your fall goodie bag?
Fall goodie bag. Ask us the questions. Until next time, we out.